Did you know there was a revolution in California in 1846? It's so significant that it is one of the major events that students learn about in the fourth grade while studying California history. Of course, I am talking about the Bear Flag Revolt, a revolt that is deeply connected to the history of Sutter's Fort. For a little context, Americans had been traveling to California by wagon since 1841 with the Bidwell-Bartleson Party. Ideals like Manifest Destiny were strong, not only amongst the American immigrants who were coming to Mexican California, but also in leaders at the time like President James Knox Polk. John Charles Fremont, who was part of the United States Topographical Corps, was supposed to be mapping the West, but was traveling with 60 well-armed mountain men. And they were to be here to spy on California in case war had broken out between the United States and Mexico. In the spring of 1846, though, nobody in California knew that Congress had declared war on Mexico over Texas. However, Fremont already had his own plans and was filibustering around Alta California so much that it antagonized Jose Castro, the general of the Mexican cavalry and acting governor in Monterey, while Governor Pio Pico was in Southern California. On April 17th, 1846, Castro issued a proclamation in Monterey ordering the mass deportation of Americans from Alta California to leave by the end of the year if they were not Mexican citizens. This created a lot of worry and fear amongst the Americans that were living in the vicinity of Sutter's Fort. Keep in mind, many of the Americans that had been traveling to this area here in 1845 had not even lived in California long enough to become citizens. And many had family who were traveling to California as part of the very large migration in 1846, a migration that also included the Donner Party. Fremont and his group will leave this area, leave California, and will travel to Oregon, only to travel south and camp off the Bear River in June 1846. Now, Lieutenant Francisco Arce was ordered to travel to this area by General Jose Castro to round up government horses to be used by the Mexican cavalry to help drive out Americans from California. However, he couldn't keep these orders to himself. He will travel to William Knight's ranch near present-day Woodland, and he will visit with Carmel Lucero y Tapia Arce Knight, Francisco Arce's cousin. Carmel and William will learn of Arce's plans, and on June 8th, 1846, it's actually noted in the daily logbook here at Sutter's Fort, known as the New Helvetia Diary, that Arce arrives here at Sutter's Fort with 6 or 8 soldiers. So Arce is staying here at Sutter's Fort on the 8th and on the 9th. And while Arce is staying here, William Knight will spread the news of Arce's intentions. And on June 10th, 1846, while Arce is leaving this area to travel to Martin Murphy's Rancho, which is near where present-day Elk Grove is where those 170 government horses are at. Those are the horses that Arce is supposed to bring to Monterey. However, Arce is followed by Ezekiel Merritt and 9 other men, and they will capture Arce, and they will capture those horses. They will send Arce and his men back to Monterey unarmed. That group will then come back here to Sutter's Fort and gain more supporters to plan a rebellion against the Mexican government. It is at this point that I should say that the full history cannot be boiled down into a short video like this, and also many of the accounts as to what will happen next in this story are incredibly conflicting. Hubert Howe Bancroft actually interviews quite a few members of this rebellion decades later, and we'll get a different story from each person that's being interviewed. Nevertheless, on June 14th, 1846, approximately 30 Americans and their families who lived in the vicinity of Sutter's fort, commandeered the Mexican Army's headquarters in Sonoma and proclaimed California an independent nation. This became known to history as the Bear Flag Revolt. General Mariano Guadalupe Vallejo and the 11 Mexican soldiers stationed at the Sonoma barracks were the entire army in Northern California. The barracks was taken peacefully. The rebels spent several days hanging around Vallejo's hacienda, drinking his wine and brandy, and decided the future for their new republic. William Brown Ide will proclaim himself president of the new republic. William Brown Ide Adobe State Historic Park outside of Red Bluff, honors his history. He will write a proclamation of independence. A draft of it is in the Sutter's Fort collection. It is known as the Bear Flag Revolt because of the flag that was designed on June 15th, 1846. Many know the story of the origins of our bear flag that flew over Sonoma that was made by William Todd, the nephew of Mary Todd Lincoln. The bear flag consisted of a red star, a very crude-looking bear that many thought looked more like a pig than it did a bear, the words California Republic, and a red stripe at the bottom. This flag is the precursor to our state flag today, but the bear flag is not actually adopted as our official state flag until 1911. What is often not mentioned in history books, and I must add that there is so many conflicting oral accounts of the revolt, is all the people that helped William Todd make the bear flag. It is Mrs. John Sears and Nancy Kelsey, both supplied white fabric for the flag and helped sew the flag. Elizabeth Patton Elliott contributed a red stripe of flannel, but also some accounts noted that John Grider, a black man, was present during the rebellion, found paint in an old barn near the Sonoma barracks so that Todd can paint the star and the bear on the flag. General Mariano Vallejo was eventually taken prisoner and was initially brought to Fremont's camp off the Bear River, but John Charles Fremont denied taking Vallejo prisoner, probably knowing the potential international incident that could have been. On June 16th, 1846, it is noted in the fort's logbook that Mariano Vallejo, his brother Salvador Vallejo, his brother-in-law, who was an American, Jacob Lease, and his secretary, Victor Prudhomme, were jailed at Sutter's Fort in the bottom part of one of the bastions. It is also at this time that some version of the bear flag could have flown over Sutter's Fort at the flagpole. No matter what, this Bear Flag Republic, also known as the California Republic, didn't last long. Fremont's group will arrive in Sonoma on June 25th, 1846, and will assume command and offered military protection for the new republic. The Bear Flag Republic lasted for just 3 weeks until July 7th, 1846, when the United States Navy, under the command of Commodore John Drake Sloat, will arrive in Monterey, take control of the Customs House and the Presidio, and begin the United States occupation of California and the Mexican-American War on the Pacific Coast. On July 9th, the U.S. flag was brought to Sonoma, and on July 11th, 1846, Joseph Warren Revere, the grandson of Paul Revere, will bring the 28-star U.S. flag to fly over Sutter's Fort.